Welcome. You're watching Channel 9 in Fairfield. I'm Susan Kessel, station manager, and we're doing a special tour today of a gallery of Bill Teeple's, Gallery 51 East. And our guest is Lawrence Sheaff. And I wanted to make sure I said that name right.
That was correct, yes.
And you spell it how?
S-H-E-A and then two Fs.
Two Fs, okay. So Lawrence is new in Fairfield, but he now resides here. And Bill, you knew his work?
I didn't know his work. As soon as he came to town, a friend of mine, one of my students, brought him up to meet me. And as soon as I looked at his slides, I said, we've got to show this guy's work. And I actually, he got here just before our inaugural show for the opening of the gallery. And I repainted the whole foyer in this gallery just so that we could have his pieces included in the show, because I liked his pieces so much.
How nice.
So he got
You've
started.
created a wonderful space here, and this is on the third floor in the alley on the north side of the square, 51.
Yeah, 51 East Broadway.
East Broadway.
Gallery 51 East.
And do you have hours?
Well, the gallery hours are when I'm up here teaching. I also have a teaching studio up here where I teach art, and so it's kind of odd hours.
But you're here a lot.
I'm here a lot. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the afternoon after lunch, 1 to 3:30 or so. And then again, 5 o'clock in the evening until 9:30 at night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So you can stop by in the evening after dinner and enjoy the art.
Great.
And Saturday, 1 to 4.
Okay, so that's a lot of different times to choose from. Lawrence, you are from Canada?
From London.
London?
England, yes.
Where did I get Canada?
No, his paintings, a lot of these paintings were in Victoria, in Canada.
Okay,
and
that's...
we had them shipped in.
Okay.
Yes, before I came here to Fairfield, I'd spent 15 months in Vancouver.
Okay. And how did you come to be in Fairfield?
Well, I have a lot of friends here, and because I've been connected with the knowledge here that the university is dealing with for many years, and they had a major course going on here last September. So I came to be a part of that, and the feeling was very good here. It was a very lively feeling. I think there's a lot of expansion going to go on here and a lot of creativity, and I felt I needed to stay. And so I've been here ever since and hoping to continue.
Well, I hope you do. We do have a lot of artists here, and that's a very good thing. We're getting national attention as that. Tell me, what is your art background?
Well, originally I was trained at a London College of Art in the early 60s, and that was in fine art, in painting and lithography and etching. And also I did some courses in graphic design and publications, and I was working with that a lot for many years. And then I started to work full-time for Maharishi's movement, TM movement, and was very, very involved with the design work for the organisation, which I've been doing for the last 20 years. And then about 10 years ago I started doing my own paintings again. And the exhibition you have here is the result of those activities. Okay,
so it's almost, and maybe you won't like this, but almost like two shows going on here.
It's almost
your work
like
here in the back galleries, and then in the other room, your previous work.
Yes, they're concurrent. The more geometric forms have evolved from these more figurative works, which I started to do initially about, as I say, when I started painting again about 10 years ago. I started just with simple, direct, figurative work, landscapes and still lives.
So are some of those from 10 years ago also?
No, these are more recent.
He's continued both things at the same time, but
that's
it began
amazing.
with the still life, and then he moved into the more geometric pieces, but he's kept up the still life work and the landscape.
There was a period in the middle there where I was moving on to these more geometric forms, so there was about 8 years where I was just focusing on these, and then more recently I found I wanted to go back to the still lives as well. So they run alongside. You know, there's no difference for me, between the
Okay.
two. Actually, in terms of the experience of painting, there's just a slightly different flavour for me now between the figurative and the
Okay.
abstract, because the abstract on one level has figurative values for me,
Right.
and also the figurative things, they have abstract values there.
Right.
So for me, they've
Well,
merged
when-
into one thing now.
When we take the camera in there, you'll see why I was thinking that. But I know as an artist myself, when I work in different media, someone might make that same judgment.
Right.
So we're here in a space, and let's talk about this piece right here.
Mhm.
Was there inspiration for this one? What was?
Well, since we started with the still lives, talking about those and seeing how they evolved, that I was wanting to get to, I found naturally as I was working with these forms that I wanted to get to the subtler values that construct these forms. The whole universe is an infinity of different structures and different forms, but behind those forms there are laws which govern those structures and create them. So the attention was going more and more to those values, and wanting to discover how we could actually start to present that inner value of the object, the hidden subtle values of natural law that repose in every object that we experience. And that gradually led me on to moving away from direct figurative things to want to deal with the more basic things like form and colour itself in its pure form. So instead of the paint or the colour pretending to be a cup or a bottle or a tree, I wanted to start working with colour itself in its pure form. So I started working with these squares of colour, and then after a while these whole forms started to emerge, which have all the basic geometries in them, the point, the line, the circle, the triangle and the square. And then out of that, a whole philosophy has evolved in which I link these basic structures, or I identify these basic structures with this knowledge of consciousness that's in this Maharishi Vedic Science, which Maharishi's been bringing out over the last 50 years, and which I've been studying for many, many years myself. So naturally a connection came between wanting to identify these underlying structures in nature and how you would visually actualize those in the medium of easel painting.
And how did you go about that? Is this acrylic or oil?
This is acrylic on canvas.
Acrylic on canvas.
Yes.
Do you use a ruler, a yardstick
Yes,
ruler?
yes. The tools I use for creating these paintings, obviously I had to find my way to creating them. I was seeing these images on the inside, and I had to, over time, figure out how I could actualize them. And what I'm using are just a ruler, a straight edge, and a beam compass, which is a simple instrument that allows you to draw very big circles. And this tool, which is called a ruling pen. And it's a very simple tool. It's a tool the architects used to use for drawing consistent straight lines before these super duper modern pens came out that could fulfill that purpose. But it allows me to draw this line very consistently, and I just mix the acrylic paint to the right consistency and use this little pen to draw these lines.
Oh, there's wonderful color combinations. I love these. And the colors as they overlap one another. And then you've got the thick beaded. How is that?
Those are layers of paint built up,
Okay.
and that's gives another level of dynamism to the picture, and also gives fixed points, resting points for the eye, because these images have a very dynamic value too. This symmetry that I'm using gives a value of stillness or repose to the whole image, but overlaid on top of that, these forms are dancing among themselves. The forms among themselves, there's a continual dynamism. So in the image you've got this value of silence and this value of dynamism, and that connects to the way this modern quantum physics and also this Maharishi Vedic Science both describe this structure of reality, this underlying unified field, from which all the forms in the universe emerge. This is a field of consciousness as it's described in Vedic science. So this dynamism is there in the image, and this underlying silence is structured by this symmetry. And then these points, these raised points on the canvas, they re-establish for us the tactile surface, the flat surface that we're working on, because the image also creates these spatial values, illusory spatial values in and out of the surface. So these points become places for the eye to rest and locate again that surface of the canvas.
Well, they're really interesting.
Thank you.
You
And
spend a lot of time just looking at one painting.
Yes, and
a lot what's there
they
starts
really
to be revealed.
move around, and it reminds me when I used to do spirograph.
That we could talk about too.
So we'll take a camera break. We're looking at another painting, a very large one, and what is the title of this?
I can't remember.
Okay.
It's on the label there. I did this about
This is
6 or 8.
The universal form.
The universal form, yes, that's right.
Okay. And it looks different as I'm closer than when I was in the other room. It changes.
There's a lot going on with those concentric circles and those colors
Yes,
as you
they
get closer.
seem to be coming.
Yes, there are those two basic values with an image, especially an image of this size. I always work now with a canvas 36 inches by 36 inches. And there's two basic values I like to take care of. That value of a certain distance where you get very much the wholeness of the image. So it has to have its own balance on that level. But when you come in closer, then I like there to be detail there, another level of detail that you can only pick up when you come closer into the image. So there's always, as you're approaching it more and more, there's always something new to see, something new unfolds about the image, which you don't get from just seeing it from a distance. So I like to make sure that that continuing interest is there, built into the image.
And we'll look at this one here. It's basically greens, different shades of green, and the squares.
Yes, this one is very directly dealing with these fundamental geometries that I mentioned earlier, this point, the line, the circle, the triangle, and the square. These are very prominent here. The whole image, of course, is a square, basically. And then you have another square in here inside, but that's set inside the circle. And then these major triangles are here, an inverted one, and then a perpendicular one. And then again another layer of circles inside. So there's, again, these basic forms have been put together in a symmetry, which, as I said, gives that feeling of repose or silence. And then on top of that, the way they're layered with these fine lines so that you're seeing one form through the other, it creates a kind of dynamism in the image, which makes the image very lively on that level. So again, that integration of the silence with the dynamism, or the repose with the activity, which is what this, as I say, this quantum physics and this Vedic science describes, this structure of consciousness, or this structure of the unified field from which everything emerges in creation. That is a field which is an integration of infinite silence and infinite dynamism. So that value I'm trying to give a visual expression to. This is what the paintings are about, actually.
Now, when you're working, do you know when you're going to stop?
That's something that there's a discussion that takes place between me and the painting, and we come to an agreement on that.
Okay. I know lots of art that say stop before you're finished.
Yes,
it's best to not go too far.
That's right, and you have to maintain that lively interaction with what you're creating, because there are the experience I have very strongly with these paintings is that life in the image. You know, the image starts as an abstract desire or concept or feeling inside, and then the process of painting is the joy of actualizing that in a concrete form. And that's what artists want to do. They want that inner bliss or that inner joy that they feel, They want to give expression to that and see what it looks like in its concrete form so that they can share it with others. So that process of creating that, in the process of creating that, once you begin, then the image itself has a life of its own, which you have to respect and you have to interact with and you have to listen to. So there's a dialogue that takes place for me, and as I say, that's very, very strongly felt for me when I'm doing these mandala paintings. It's somehow very lively for me.
Now, you do etching also?
I haven't done that for many years, no. Mostly the still lives which you've seen.
Which we will look at.
Yes, and they're done in these water pastels, so it's quite a simple
I was going
medium.
to say that etching is very fine lines, and I love to get in the cross hatching and I just wondered if you were attracted to that from just
I
something
think
that you feel a part
you've probably
of.
planted a seed for me now. I think I'd like to,
Now
to
we've
look
got
at the
someplace to
etching
go.
medium. Actually, it would
Yeah,
be very,
etching
very
would be,
beautiful to do these things.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I'm very fond of etching, and so I
Yes.
can see the translation immediately.
And let's look at this one. This one's got some different texture in here from the others that we've looked at.
Yeah, this one, yes, this one does rather suggest a night sky, actually, and so it already has that feeling of expansion in terms of space, and in a way, these lighter points of colour here at the junctions of these lines, they do have a kind of twinkle or sparkle like a starry sky. So there is a kind of figurative connection that you could apply to this painting. But again, it's dealing with the same thing, this silence and this dynamism together, the silence of the symmetry and the dynamism of these points and these textures behind, you know, flowing together in an aesthetic wholeness. You know, this is for me what these paintings are about. Integrating those two values and making a wholeness out of them that enlivens that same value of wholeness, because what we're wanting to do is try to capture that inner value of creativity that resides in all of us, and to somehow touch that in the viewer and kind of ignite it.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's a very nice one.
Thank you.
And we'll take another break. This is the piece that greets you as you come up the third flight of stairs, breathing hard.
Good exercise.
It looks like, is the centerpiece a separate canvas?
It is actually, yes.
And then it's placed inside the other canvas.
Right.
I think this is my favorite out here.
Mm-hmm.
Is this one of your latest?
Well, yes, it is a more recent one. Yes,
Okay.
This came up after working with these ideas for some time. Actually, the outer one is a wood panel,
Okay.
a solid wood panel, and it has a 2-inch return thickness to it. And this whole panel has been gold leafed in 24 karat gold leaf. And this center panel is also a wood panel, but I stretched canvas over it and then set it into the center of the outer panel.
So you did that first before
Yeah.
you started.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually I worked on the center panel itself in terms, as you can see, you've got these main forms that connect us to the outer structure of the image, and then but underneath that there's a whole other layer. There's like another miniature painting
Yes.
that's just contained in the blue one. So that I created first, and then placed it in the golden outer golden structure, and then created the linking values in
Okay.
acrylics on top of that. Actually, this painting has precious gems on it, semi-precious gems on it, about 180. And for many years I'd been wanting to, because as you've seen, I do these raised dots of colour.
Right.
I was wondering how I could create one of these images and actually use gems on it. So this was the first painting where I actually did that. And it's a mixture of raised colours, dots of paint, and these semi-precious gems. There is a ruby, a real ruby that I have that goes in the centre, but I I have that at home, locked up at home.
It really works. I like it.
Yeah, I
Oh,
like
thank
this
you.
one very much myself. The little sparks of light where the lines cross is wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do feel that this is one of the most powerful of the images that I've done. There's something very primordial in its simplicity and its power, and it just, again, has those very, very basic forms, the square, and then the horizontal division, and then the vertical division. These are the basic values of orientation. You know, when we're expanding from the point, then as soon as the line starts to emerge from the point, then it's like time-space beginning, like the beginning of the universe, time-space. In the point you have infinity and its timelessness, but as soon as the line emerges, then time begins, time and space begins. And the first manifestation of that is this horizontal, this state of rest. And then the complement to that, and this is the feminine value, the complement to that is the masculine value, which is this vertical form. And then the subdivisions, the values to that, or the initial ones, are these diagonals, which then lock you to the corners of the square. And then set within that is this circle. So these are very primordial structures of the universe in terms of geometry. So this is what I think gives this painting a very, very powerful kind of presence.
Very nice. And I said I was going to thinking about taking a risk here. A lot of people in Fairfield that are going to be watching this show are not meditators, myself included. And so I have to say, the first time I came up for your class and you were hanging these, and I kind of looked at them, they were interesting, but here the second time, I like them a lot more, and you explaining some of these principles. For me as an artist, I can kind of understand. A lot of times it like just the words and everything are like gone. But I understand some of what you're saying.
Good.
But as an artist and coming up here, I think the public would like to see the pictures for themselves, whether or not they're meditators or not.
Well, I would. It's very nice.
I did take a risk.
Very nice what you said, and I think that we've been talking and explaining a little bit, because when people do confront these images, it doesn't matter who they are. Whether this has been my experience over the years, whether they're much interested in art or whether they're very interested in art, whatever their background is, there's an experience that takes place in a person. They feel something when they look at these images. Now, all that we've been talking and explaining are just different ways, like intellectually,
right,
of trying to analyze what those things are that are happening inside, and why these very simple forms should do something to our awareness and our feeling value and our heart value, and like that. So, but the main thing is the experience, for the people to come and connect to the images and have that experience with that image, have that connection with that image. Because why I'm inspired to continue painting is that my experience has been that what people feel with the paintings is a good thing. They feel good. It enlivens their own creativity, and they go away feeling more awake and somehow fresher, and they're enlivened by the experience. So, yes, I would second your.
And I would say, as the gallery man here, that it's a two-way street. The artist gives his all. When you come to an art exhibit, you're seeing something that's someone's whole life. They maybe have spent 30 years creating these things. So
right,
you, as the audience, have to give a little from your side, a little of your attention. So it's good to just come to the paintings innocently and open.
Not make a judgment.
Yeah,
call.
no, don't come with judgments, because it'll only close them off for you. It's better to just sit there innocently in front of it and say, what gift does this man have to give me? And then you're more open to experiencing, and you'll start to have the experience that he wants to share.
And different people will appreciate it for different reasons
Exactly.
because of the background that they personally bring
Exactly.
to
That's
the work.
right.
And that makes the
That's
whole
right.
experience even richer, because when they start talking about their experience, then this communal experience around the paintings gets richer.
And hopefully, this is something that can bring us together, even though we're different and different thoughts and
Exactly.
beliefs and
Exactly.
everything. We can agree that this is a beautiful piece of work.
Absolutely. Exactly. That's the value of art.
So this is a good time to go into the other room. We are still visiting Bill Teeple's gallery, Gallery 51 East in Fairfield, and our guest, Lawrence Sheaff. And we're in the other room looking at his work. I relate to this work a lot. And I think probably more Fairfield people will, just because it's more recognizable, and that's not always the best way to determine a work of art. What are we looking at right now?
This one is called A Small Vase of Flowers, and it's the still lives are a more playful, light-hearted medium of expression for me, and this one is just a play of form and colour.
And what media is this?
The media I'm using are these water-based pastels. They're like these. You have these oil pastels.
That's what I've been painting with.
Yeah, but these are the same thing, but they're water-based.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And these I use Caran dash actually. They're a fine art colour fast medium, so they're very.
They have a little bit of a look of a print to me.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Yes, for me, it's like oil painting, because I build these up. I don't use water when I'm using these water pastels. I just use the wax pastel straight onto the board, and I build up many layers. I've developed my own technique for building up layers of colour, and so the colour is quite thick on these paintings.
The edges are very intriguing, and that's kind of what leads me to think they look like a print, like you're layering the screens or something.
That's interesting. Yes. Yeah, I haven't been able to explain to myself why those edges are like that, but they just somehow
Do you
need to be
start
like that.
out by doing an outline edge, and then keeping your picture within that?
Very often it's like that. I decide on, what the proportion is that I want to work in to create this image, but often it can be freer than that, and then the actual size and proportions of the image get decided as it's unfolded. So it can work both ways.
Oh, these are really nice.
I like that
Thank you.
edge a lot. It's like
I
the
do
whole
too.
illusion of the thing starts to dissolve at the edge, and it's really quite.
Yes.
I think that's Bill's touched on it. I think that's something of the thing I enjoy about it, that edge makes you realise that here's this world that's been created, but in actual fact this is just these pieces of colour, on a flat surface. So the edges
Right.
kind of give that away, allow you to peek behind the scene, as it were.
Yes.
Now you don't use water at all with
No,
them?
no.
Because some of the surfaces are very slick. It looks almost like paint.
Yeah, I have a way of sort of polishing those
It
surfaces.
looks like it's been polished.
I do. I polish them then. Yeah.
And is this is the same thing?
Yes.
Water pastel on board.
Mm-hmm. But this is a print. This is in actual
This
fact a
is
print
actually
A
from
print
an
of the
original.
It's a
work.
reproduction.
Okay.
This is the only print in the room here. All the others are the actual original paintings.
Now I can see where this one's taking off a little bit into the other direction.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So in that sense, in a way, as we were talking earlier, the still lives and these more geometric paintings that we were just looking at, for me there's not really very much difference between the two approaches, because in these still lives it's nothing but geometry, if you want to look at it from that
Right,
point
and
of
the
view.
deeper you delve into the art and breaking down, you really do. I mean, I can go totally abstract
Exactly.
in certain media that
That's
just
right.
lend itself towards that.
That's exactly it. So that's all that you're seeing here, and it's just that with these paintings, my inspiration was to really try to move in the abstract channel as to see how far you could go to get to that absolute structure. This is why I'm calling the paintings absolute image, because I'm really trying to get to that absolute structure that underlies, that reveals the underlying dynamics that are present in all our visual experience. And then here's something that's between the two. It's starting to become geometry, but it's also,
Right.
you know, suggests a still life
I
on
love
the table.
this little shape up here, repetitious.
Yeah, it's a
of-
lovely piece.
It's wonderful. And the next one is, what media is this?
It's the same media.
Same thing.
These are all the same thing in this room, yes.
And you did say you do etching. Have done etching.
I have done etching, yes.
This reminds me a little bit of etching.
Uh-huh.
That
Yeah.
vase is beautiful.
Thank you.
The wonderful tiny detail, and then the very powerful blue.
Yes, the contrast in there, very nice. But what I really enjoy, you know, is like, for me, the climax of the painting is the way the top of the white vase is set against this, the striped wallpaper, the way it almost dissolves into that. For me, there's something magical about the tonal relationship between the white of the vase and the yellow background.
And once again, this outer edge is so playful and so wonderful. I think that helps make the picture too.
I think it's brilliant,
It
because
is.
it's so on in terms of its realism and precision of rendering, and then there's such abstract
Yes.
qualities of classical form in the structure of the still life, and then it just dissolves at the
I
edges.
would love to have you teach a class in this.
We should
Wow.
do that. You should do a workshop.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd
in
love
my
to. I'd
studio.
love
That'd be
to. I'd
wonderful.
love to.
And let's move to the next one, another striped tablecloth.
Oh yes, you're
I
right.
love doing tablecloths. I love stripes and prints and all
Good,
of that. So
good,
you can
yeah.
see why I relate to this.
Yes, so the inspiration from this, actually I set up a photograph initially. I bought a friend of mine some flowers, and I suddenly thought, oh, I'd love to do a painting of that. And they had these beautiful, very beautiful Persian rugs in the house, and I said, I want a Persian rug. So we found a way of hanging a
Oh.
Persian rug behind it
Wonderful.
and setting up some fruit. So I've added some other things myself to it, but that's how the image started.
Do you work from photograph quite a bit?
Often I do use it as a starting point, and from photographs, sometimes I set up a still life, and sometimes I just, you know, create directly from the imagination if there's something there. So it
Now
can
the one next, another water pastel on board, and this reminds me of another print.
well, this is in the same medium, the water pastel, and this is a little freer. The colours are starting to break down into just particles, like the lively particles that we
The
know.
wonderful holes
Yeah.
are great. Another of the water pastel, and I have to get close here, Moonrise 2001.
This was a view actually from the window of where I was living last, which was in Victoria, on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. And it was a wonderful view of the ocean, and there was this small island out to sea that we see there, and this was the moonrise coming over the island. So this is like dusk.
Is this where the wonderful gardens are?
That's where they are.
Yes, I've been there.
Burkhardt
Yes.
Gardens, yes. Yeah, beautiful.
Yes. And this one?
And this is
same?
the same view from my window. The first one we saw has the atmosphere of evening, and this one is afternoon. So we have the heat of the day here.
And you
being
can
expressed.
feel that. I feel that.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Now this is another view from another place I was staying in Victoria. This shows the Olympic Mountains over the border there in the USA, as viewed from Victoria.
Okay. Now this last one is Very nice. I love this print fabric here. The glass, lots of people say glass is hard to do, but it doesn't look like it is for you.
Yes, these pots and vessels and things that you see in the still life I'd lived with for many months. They belonged to the house I was living in at the time. And I'd thought for many months about creating a still life out of them. And again, the ghosts of the mountains you see in the background there,
Oh, yes.
they're again the Olympic mountains. So for me, this all these vessels in this picture, they all have their own personality, and they have their own dialogue with each other. You know, their forms and the relationships that they have with each other. There's for me, like a conversation going on between their forms. And there again, that links us to this geometry value, because all these are circles and straight lines and curves interlocking
And the way
together.
you have them next to each other is perfect.
Oh,
Very well composed.
and so that's the fun for me of creating something like this. And these last 4 or 5 paintings that we've looked at, they were all done in Victoria, so they're very full of the feeling and atmosphere of that place, and I'm hoping some of that gets conveyed to the viewer too.
They're wonderful. Well,
Thank you.
we are really glad you're in Fairfield,
Mm.
and we hope that you get to know our community, and our community gets to know you, and see your work. Come up here to Gallery 51 East, Bill Teeple's studio. Wonderful spot up here on the 3rd floor, north side of the square. And you have regular exhibits
Yes, about every
And
6 weeks. We
every
have a
6
new
weeks.
show.
And this one is here for another month?
This one we've extended by popular demand.
Great.
Because people keep wanting to come up and see it. So it'll be here through June 29th.
Okay, so you have plenty of time to come up and visit. And
Well, I'd like to say thank you, Susan, for giving us this opportunity to share
thank
what
you.
we've been doing with your community, and I've enjoyed these moments with you very much. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.